Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Planet Tyro. You're here for our documentary of the month for March 2016. And for this month in particular, I felt that we need to have a female voice in. If you guys can see the title, you probably know why. And I want that female perspective. We've missed it here on Planet Tyro. We've had it a few times with Nuance, but now I want to bring a new voice on. Someone you've seen on some of the previous videos, but for the first time, I'm going to have her on with me solo. And in future, we hope to see more of her on the YouTube channel. I'm kind of helping her come up with. But until then, let's have her on right now. And I want to introduce the world to Raven. How you doing, Raven?
Hey, how's it going? You good?
I'm not doing too bad. And we're going to have a very interesting discussion on this documentary right here.
Yep.
Guys, if you've noticed, you can see the title. It's called Hot Girls Wanted. It's a 2015 Netflix produced documentary. And it's about young girls in the porn industry and how they're kind of getting sucked into it a bit. This was an interesting topic, and as I said, I wanted the female perspective on, because having two guys on here, or just me, I felt a little bit like I'm interested to hear what a woman would think of this. So that's why I've got Raven on. And what we're going to do is, this is going to be somewhat of a different kind of discussion, because usually with movies or other documentaries that have a specific kind of narrative, it has a story structure we could talk about. But this documentary in particular is single focused, and the discussion is more social, and the topic at hand deserves a open discussion on what we think about it. And there isn't a story per se anyway, so it's kind of shorthand for us to get into. So what's going to be happening is we're going to be breaking it into elements of the filmmaker perspective, or what the characters are talking about, or the people, not the characters, the people are talking about, and how we feel it's affected us, the culture, what have you. There's going to be a lot of here and there, a lot of back and forth. And for the record, most of these documentaries you've noticed we've been doing monthly, usually 10-15 minutes, but because it's us two on, it's the first time we're having someone on with me for a documentary discussion. It might be longer, might be half an hour. I really don't want it to be longer than half an hour, but we're going to let it just be natural. So Raven, I do apologize if I step on your toes, but feel free to jump in anything you want. But I'm going to start by breaking it down, pose a few questions, and then we're going to open the floor to a discussion. That sound cool?
That's fine. That's absolutely fine.
Okay, guys, so just in case you don't know what Hot Girls Wanted is about, Hot Girls Wanted is a documentary that we're following 3 or 4 girls aged around 18 to 19, and it shows you how they access the means to, beknownst or unbeknownst to them, get into the porn industry. And it also shows the people who facilitate these industries. In this case, one particular guy who has like a 5-bedroom house,
yeah,
and uses Craigslist to kind of put up these advertisements to quote unquote lure girls in by putting advertisements like young girls looking for modeling gigs or come to Miami to take pictures, and it might devolve into something else. Again, it ends up being about porn. Yeah. And the documentary then shows you how they live in this house, how they create pornography. It talks about their thoughts on what they're doing, how they think about it, how they're perceived. And the documentary also gives you a lot of facts about the porn industry, facts about this particular genre, which in this case is kind of focusing on the young teen amateur side of pornography. And that's basically it. And it doesn't cover their whole lives, obviously. It just covers a certain period, and some of them it does show how it ends up for them in the end. But you know, I don't know, let's say it might cover a year or so, but it's about these 4 girls in this house, and that's basically it. So before we get started, I think it's very important to lay out our cards on the table so people kind of know our perspective on pornography. So as a guy, I'm gonna go first. It's kind of atypical for me to say I'm a guy, I've watched pornography. And, you know, in my age, growing up with pornography, it was a little bit harder because technology wasn't as advanced then as it is now. But I had my fill, you know, and pornography is free. I've seen tons of it. I don't have anything against it. I don't watch as much of it as I used to. What this movie is in particular, this young teen amateur porn, I grew out of that when I was not a teenager. I know people probably don't give a shit about what I watch, but I'm just saying this particular genre of pornography doesn't appeal to me because I'm in my 30s right now, so I probably watch stuff that are closer to my age. That's the truth. I'm not going to lie about it, although I do occasionally watch stuff like this. But anyway, I'm not against pornography. I watch it occasionally, not as much as I used to because I'm just an old man now. But I'm just being honest. Why not? Just be honest. But
I don't have an issue with pornography for various reasons. I used to when I was in my teens, before I'd gone through a lot of experiences. But as I've gotten older, the standard idea of sort of pornography I don't actually have an issue with for various reasons. Because in my early 20s, I went through a period of time where various things, low confidence, low self-esteem, not actually being able to get a job post-university, having low paid jobs and being conned by a lot of people in that degree. And I ended up doing art nude modeling, which not a lot of people realize, but can actually lead into the pornographic industry. And I was actually approached to do porn, and I said no. So that's why I can't really have to be too het up about it. But yeah, I was an artist model for a while, and I was friends with people who would do pornographic type shoots, and friends with people who were strippers and all sorts of things. And they were nice enough people. I've watched pornography before, I'm not gonna lie. Teens isn't something that I'm interested in, because I just think that there's a line once you get to a certain age, and it just feels weird to me. It just doesn't feel right. It's the word paedophilia kind of comes into my mind when I think teens. Just saying.
No, that's fine. I mean, generally, women do seem to feel a little bit less, I don't know, less positive about pornography than men. But obviously, we know that's because men are the most consumers of porn, generally. Yeah,
so teens, I just think past a certain age, it's just like, why are you watching? That's just my honest opinion. But pornography, if I'm being honest, I don't actually have issues with pornography. It's up to people what they want to do. My concerns are more with, people being really aware of what they're actually getting themselves into when they go into it. I found for myself when I was an artist model, and I was doing, I worked with some really great people, even some photographers who'd actually worked in the porn industry, funnily enough, and met their partners in the porn industry, and then their daughters became models in high fashion, and they were kind of approached to do porn on the side kind of thing as well. So it goes all over the shop. But there were also some very questionable photographers that I worked with, which made me second guess and realize that maybe I shouldn't be doing it. And I had my reasons at the time for doing it: unemployment, not earning any money, not being able to eat, all sorts of things. But I don't have a problem with it. I just get concerned with people knowing exactly what they're going into when, or not knowing what they're getting themselves into when they go into it, like with anything. So,
well, the funny thing is, because me and you are both around the same age, we're both over 30. Yeah. And back then, I think we'll get into this in a bit later, but one of the things that's interesting about this documentary in particular is showing how getting into porn now is vastly different than it probably was for you or people of our age back in the early 2000s or late 90s. Mm-hmm. Because I think it had a lot of negative stigma to it. But in this documentary, I found it to be very well. You know what? Let's get to that in a minute, because that's a very interesting part. So let's talk about some basics before we start diving into it. So from a filmmaking perspective, how do you feel it was constructed?
From a filmmaking perspective, I found it quite weird watching it. And then I realised only when you sent me the link a few days ago that the director behind it was female. So then it kind of gave me that explanation. And you can see that it's done by a female, because I think that there are various things that she highlights, which would be sort of stereotypically associated with a woman that you wouldn't necessarily think a guy would kind of link it to.
What do you mean? What do you mean about that?
Well, at the beginning, one of the opening sequences at the beginning is all these images of, can I say famous people's names on here? Or
of course you can.
Whatever. But they're clips of Nicki Minaj's bum twerking section at Anaconda, Miley Cyrus, Kim Kardashian or the Kardashians, obviously clips from images and things from Instagram and I think Twitter, and images of people on news commenting on how easily accessible porn is. I could be wrong, this is my honest opinion, but I just don't think that if a guy was making this documentary, he would necessarily include that level of material in there. And it angered me actually a little bit, because I almost felt like the perspective, at least to start with, was, well, if we didn't have these images, if children weren't able to see these images, they wouldn't want to get into pornography as obviously older adults, or, you know, younger adults in their 18, 19, late teens, early 20s.
Yeah.
So that actually really angered me, because I was like, well, no, because everybody knows that pornography, the sex industry, is the longest running business in the whole of the history of time.
Yes.
So yeah, and I just thought, yeah, you know, and I should have clicked on that it was a woman directing it from there. And it was only when you sent me the link the other day, I was like, that's why. Because I felt like, even though she talks about in the link you sent me on YouTube, the woman being empowered and, you know, she doesn't have an issue with it, this, that, and the other, I almost felt like at the same time she was kind of contradicting that and saying, yeah, but like, we have these images of these empowering women doing this on a screen, and it's kind of encouraging our youngsters to then grow up and then go into the pornographic industry. So I wasn't, that part of it didn't sit very comfortably with me.
Just in case you guys don't know what Raven's talking about, Rashida Jones, who was actually the producer, not the director. But,
sorry.
No, it's fine. You didn't mention her name, so that's fine. This whole documentary was an all-female production company. The director, the writers, all of them, there's like 4 of them. Jill Brewer, Ronna Gradis, Brittany Huckabee, and obviously Rashida Jones. These are 4 women who produced and written and directed this, so it's all women anyway. And it's that, you know, I hear what I actually like the attention to detail when they did show that, you know, this porn industry is a part of our pop culture now. It's celebrated by a lot of these Hollywood actors. The Rashida Jones interview about this is very good. If you guys...
No, it's very good. It was very good. I really enjoyed it. Sorry to interrupt you, but I did actually really enjoy watching it. It was really cool.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I'll put a link in the description or in the YouTube card to that. It's definitely worth checking out that interview as well. But getting back to the documentary in particular, I feel it was, like you said, I feel it was constructed with a lot of facts, a lot of things that, honestly, was I surprised it was made by a female crew? Yeah, because obviously, well, that's got more to do with the frankness. I thought there was a level of frankness and a level of honesty. I thought that if this was a woman, they would have been a little bit more sensitive to the situation. Yeah. But it was pretty brutal, pretty like matter of fact. And I, as a man, I was like, you know what? They're not really shying away from anything. The only part where I specifically felt like, no, this is women directors, is there, without getting into spoilers, one of the pornographic actors, female young teens, they have a medical incident which is very specific.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, man, you, as a man, obviously I don't know the female anatomy to that degree. Yeah. So when that happened, I was like, fucking hell, that is so deep. It's so disturbing.
See, for me, I actually, quote unquote, liked the fact that they included that in there. Because for me, it wasn't about it being typically female. It was more about what women have to put up with gynecologically anyway. But because she's doing what she's doing, it's kind of like, obviously, pushed forward because of that the onset is because she's having so much sex, which is the reason why she gets what she gets in the first place. You know, and I was thankful. I was not thankful for her, but I was also, it was interesting, and I thought it was interesting that it wasn't like your sort of standard STI, for example. It was something that you wouldn't think to equate with it. I liked quote unquote the fact that it wasn't an STI, if that made sense. So that would have just been too typical.
And that's how I knew. That's like, okay, only a woman would explore that, and it wasn't about being too woman. It's like only a woman would show you this, because a man probably wouldn't know or just think it was a bit weird. So I like that fact. But let me just get back to the filmmaking for a minute. Honestly, the way the film, if we're talking about how it was shot, it was nothing special. If I'm talking about from a cinematography perspective, it was just kind of like, I said this to you off camera, it felt kind of like an MTV show in a sense, where they were in a house and there was a few cameras. It was a bit shaky cam, and some of the editing was okay, because they used a lot of B-roll to show you some facts about porn, about how much people watch it, how much people like a certain type of porn. So the editing on the whole was, the whole thing was shot just kind of blasé. It doesn't need to be glamorized, it doesn't need to be like showing all these superficial shots. It was just done it just did what it needed to do. It was just very simple, straight to the point. There was a few editing stuff here and there. And if you're a fan of porn, you'll notice there's a few porn sites they highlight. One in particular, facial abuse, something like that, which I never even heard of that site. But
nor had I until I'd seen that what they'd put, they showed a section of what it was, and that really grossed me out. I was not comfortable watching that at all. And for me, because it goes more towards the abusive side as opposed to just straightforward sex. Like I was not comfortable watching it at all. I really wasn't comfortable, but I was glad they included it, because you need to include that in there for people to see kind of like the darker side. Of course,
and it's fair. I know some people will be like, they're just trying to dramatize it. I'm like, nah, that's a part of porn. People like bondage, people like abuse. Not my thing, but
But for me, even with my personal experience in my 20s with shoots and stuff, which did do a lot of like bondage type shoots. Even that for me, like what I saw, the facial abuse stuff, that was way beyond. I was like, I would never, ever, ever, ever do anything like that. Like, like I said, I didn't do porn anyway. I wouldn't do it because I wanted to pursue other things. But it was just too much for me. I was like, oh. Yeah, I'm not comfortable watching that. But when I meant by it was weird earlier, like that bit, there was only like 2 bits I really didn't like, or 3 bits I didn't like really. Like I said, the open clips. Not because the clips they use for Nicki Minaj and stuff, not because I'm trying to deny that sex isn't part of like mainstream pop culture, it is, but it was just because I kind of get a little bit tired of like the same debate where people are going, it's something does need to be done in terms of the accessibility that young people have, in terms of censorship. I agree, but I almost kind of feel that people use pop stars and those as like easy scapegoats almost, and so that kind of got to me. But there were 2 other bits that got to me as well: the facial abuse stuff, which I've mentioned, and also I felt like there was a narrative that almost seemed to be kind of coming out of it. Was it Teresa, the girl who ended up with the boyfriend?
Yeah.
So I felt like the documentary took on like a different turn towards the end of almost towards the end of the documentary, and it kind of focused more on her. Yeah. Which I wasn't too sure about. I felt like I didn't get to know some of the other girls, and I would have liked to have gotten to know some of the other women.
That's a good idea. That's a very good point, because the trajectory, it was meant to be about these 4 girls, but then the trajectory went into, and not a spoiler, what the person that got out of it, and focusing on her. And I guess in a way you could feel like it serves the agenda to show, if you're leaving, how it can affect your life. But then most of them stayed.
Yeah.
So it's like, why did we choose to follow the one that left? But it's obviously to make the point that this can have a negative effect on your life if you decide to leave, which I understand. But funny enough, and we're going to start opening, because I want to make this more general now.
Okay.
Coming away from the documentary, and looking at some of the things people said about the documentary as well, this to me was like, let me go back a little bit.
Okay.
When I was young, when I heard about getting into porn, it was very nefarious. It was very, getting into porn without the internet. Without the internet, it was very close to like drug dealing. If you want to get into porn, you got to meet all these seedy people, dark alleys, and you have to know the right person. It felt like so dangerous. Today, with social media, with the internet, with Craigslist, and coming away from this documentary, the access to getting into this industry, number one, was scarily easy access, and it took away the nefarious element, because the guy who's owning the house and the guy who's getting these girls, and he's like, look man, I put this stuff on Craigslist, and he's even, look, I can't put on the Craigslist that I'm hiring porn stars, so I got to put on models wanted, and by the time they get here, I showed them the deal, but when they see the money, it was hard for me to say he's luring them in, because it's kind of obvious. And even the guy's like, look man, the thing that made me feel uncomfortable and kind of disassociated from this was that the guy's like, look man, every day a new girl's 18.
Yep.
Every day, a new girl wants to do this. Some of them don't know. Most of them do know. And, you know, their shelf life in this industry is like 2-3 months. If you're lucky, and if you're super lucky, a fucking year, unless you're the 1 in a million hit superstar. So I came away, and the girls in particular that they chose for this documentary, I noticed a few things about them. Most of them had this whole thing of, and I'm not trying to generalize, but they had this thing of, I just wanted to get away. I just wanted to do things with my life. I didn't want to be like my parents, and I wanted to have fun, and I wanted to make easy money.
Yep.
And sex is just, you know, it's just sex, man. And they were having discussions, open discussions, like, oh, what is it, man? It's just fucking, I would fucking private, what's the difference now? And only after that, you know, after they'd done it, two of them, or one of them, as you said at the end, had one perspective, where the other was like, it's just a part of life. But I came away, and I'm gonna let you speak now, I came away just feeling like we live in a very jaded society. Porn culture is such a big part of pop culture that people are just seeing it as an easy way to make money, and only after doing it do they see the drawbacks. But even saying that, it's not as widely discussed or disregarded as it used to be. And there's something I'm going to add to that point which makes it even worse, but I'm going to let you speak on that.
I really agree. I was thinking when I came away from it, because I discussed this with my other half, who you know, and I was really thinking about it. I've been really thinking about it. And I actually think part of the problem with pornography, a large part of the problem with pornography, is society. And the reason why I say society is a large problem with it is because when you're presented with the option, when you're told that you can't get a good job unless you go and you study and you get an education, and then you do the education thing, and you go to university because you're told that unless you get a degree, you won't get a good job. So you go to university, you do the degree thing, you come out with a degree, and then you're told, actually, your degree isn't good enough. You have to have experience. And then you end up in a job where you're paying out more money than you're actually gaining. Is it really a shock that more people are actually turning to porn? Like, really, is it a shock that they're looking at what their parents have? Like, their parents in their day have saved up and under a different climate have achieved what they've gotten. And even to get a fraction of that, I mean, even if you just look at London prices for housing, for example, even to get a fraction of that, you can't really sustain that in sort of a standard job that you have nowadays. I honestly don't think you can. Like, you can't buy a house, you can't buy a car, all that kind of thing. And society on the one hand is saying, have this, you should be aiming for this, and on the other side says, yeah, but you need to have this kind of job, and then when you go for that kind of job, you don't get it. Like,
there's only one problem with what you're saying though, which I love, because I'm glad you actually mentioned this. The perspective you're talking of though is kind of the perspective of someone on our age. But if you go down 10 years of someone who isn't got a job at all, and they're just coming straight out of college, these girls in this documentary in particular, they're not even going to college. They seem to be going straight out of fucking high school to do this shit.
But that's also because, and I'm not trying to make, like I said, I've been around people who've been in the industry. Like, I'm not jaded. I know exactly what goes on. Like, unfortunately, a few of my friends were sexually assaulted just as art new models. So it's, you know, there's that side of everything. So please, I don't want anyone to get me twisted in thinking, you know, oh, she just doesn't know what she's talking about, whatever.
No, sure.
But the thing is when you, as someone who's been to university and stuff like that, like, if I knew then what I know now in terms of the debt situation and stuff like that I would have coming out of university, I'd most probably double think whether or not I should even bother to go to university. And I'm sure a lot of these young women are aware that, like, you know, going from high school into college is kind of like taking a risk.
Yeah.
You go there, you get your degree, but there's no guarantee you're going to get the job that you're looking to get when you get from there. And then you're stuck with how many grand's worth of debt after university? And then even if you're a woman as well, and it's no disrespect to men, but if you're a woman as well, you have to then face the disadvantages of going for job interviews and being turned down because you are a woman. You know, there's all those kind of arguments to go with it. So I think I do agree with you that they are jaded. They don't know exactly what they're getting themselves into, and they only realise afterwards. And also with this inequalities in societies where, you know, men are perceived as like cool guys for sleeping around, this, that and the other, and women are perceived as whores anyway. That kind of perception definitely doesn't help if you're coming out of the porn industry and you're trying to have, quote unquote, a straight life. I do agree with you in that sense, but I just do believe that it's a larger topic for discussion and that a lot of people have a part to play in it and they don't even realise, if that makes sense.
It makes sense. And I like the fact that the documentary, well, this is the point I was going to make as well.
Yeah, go on.
Nowadays, they're making porn into a good thing. There was a particular point in this movie where there was I had the girl's name, I just lost it. There's one girl who actually is like, oh, I use porn to take myself to university and I'm celebrating it.
Yeah.
And there's even parts of the documentary where the girls are defending porn, like, look, man, it's my body, I'm making all this money, I'm having all this fun. I could do so many things I couldn't do without porn.
Yeah.
So I hear what you're saying, but a lot of girls are taking this as a viable option. Even, look, let's be real. Sasha Grey's a woman who's turned this shit around. She was a porn actress and now she's become a Hollywood star. There's people that are actually turning porn parodies. As soon as a movie comes out, there's a porn parody. I've
seen them. Yeah,
it's a whole new business where people are viably making this shit into a reality. And even though I don't want to get off the topic of this documentary because this documentary is particularly about the young girls in the industry, which is fun. But even though I would like to see people, obviously, of our age, women of our age, 30 plus. This is 18.
Yeah.
These are Generation Z. Generation Z.
18, 19, and one of them is 25. I think her name is Jade.
Yeah. I counted her out because I didn't like her. Because she was in the know. And even after the documentary, they showed you who's still in and who's still out, which is obvious. And most of them are still in the industry today. And you can even watch their shit right now. It's kind of, look, man, the documentary, do I feel the documentary was good? It was good and it was honest, but again, because this was focused on Generation Z and these young kids coming up using all the social media and the pop culture and the industry and the positivity people are trying to make out of porn today, which isn't, I'm not even saying it's negative.
Yeah.
I just came away feeling that, one, I'm an old man. Number two, everything's changing. Like, everything's changing.
And it is.
The people who get into porn, like, the thing I came away from this is, and actually, let me jump to the end because there was some people, I mean, jump to the end of the conversation. There were some people on IMDb that were saying this documentary was less about the exploitation of girls being exploitations and just about girls making bad choices.
True, yeah. No, I can see that. Because of the way it was done, I can see that.
And I felt that as well, because when I'm in the house, the thing I liked about the documentary is the guy that was running the things, he didn't give a shit. He was just there. He seemed like a guy that had people coming and going.
Yeah.
He was like, look, whether there was one minute the girl's like, I'm gonna leave, the guy's like, oh, okay, well, you know, he just wasn't bothered because he said that, man, it's an industry where girls don't last long, new girls are always coming in. So he's not even like the bad guy per se.
No.
He's just a guy you probably don't like, but he's just like, look, man, this is what I do. I don't even need to fuck the girls. I just need to bring them in. I just need to facilitate this situation. And there's a lot of girls, there's a lot of guys doing it like me. And to be fair, there's a lot of girls that are taking a lot of this. I know the documentary didn't cover this.
No, it didn't.
Which I was like, oh, you should have. It's that the cam situation. There's a lot of girls that make money off just being cam girls. Cam girls are just girls that have their own webcam and charge a service just for themselves. They don't have anyone controlling them.
That's what Jade went on to doing, wasn't it? Because it said at the end of the documentary that she quit what she was doing and she does her own work so that she's more in control or something like that. Her own cam work or website work,
Yeah. Well, I'm going to let you finish off because I've basically said everything I want to say. I do apologise if I'm wrapping this up quickly for you, Aure, because honestly, I came away thinking it was a good documentary. Some people said it was cold. Some people said it wasn't like... People were expecting this expose. Oh my god. But today's society is just not like that. Twitter, Instagram, porn is everywhere. Even the porn, even the music stars we have today, the music idols, Nicki Minaj, Rihanna, Miley Cyrus, they're all doing this shit that borders on porn anyway. So when you watch porn and when you can get on Google and just type in free porn and watch all that shit, we become super desensitized. And, as a young girl, this is another reason why I don't even have a fucking daughter. I'm not even gonna lie. This is another reason why I don't want to have a daughter in this generation because, Lawrence Fishburne has a daughter.
I know about his daughter. I've seen her. Yes, yeah.
That got into porn. Yeah. Her father's a celebrity. She had money. Why did she get into this shit?
then that particular context doesn't make any sense to me. The ladies in the in this documentary, what struck me was that, like you said, money and escapism, and then we were following Teresa, and I mean, her background didn't seem to be, yeah, she had loving parents, but there seemed to be, for me, that this underlining element that they weren't particularly well off, and they lived in quite a small town.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, so her reasons for doing it was escapism, because obviously she felt that there were things that were missing in her life.
Yeah.
And I could kind of see that also by the fact that she was, for example, she was going hunting with her dad. Now, I'm not saying that she might not like to hunt with a gun, but it just felt to me that that would be something that she was doing to spend time with her dad. And so the question that came up in my mind, as someone who is the daughter to, you know, who was a daddy's girl herself, was, well, then why isn't he spending more time with her doing things that maybe she likes more? But I mean, I know it's slightly off point, but...
It's not off point at all.
I was looking at, when I was looking at the documentary, like you said, like whoever it was that said it was more about women who made bad decisions, which I completely agree with, more so than pornography or exploitation, which I agree with in terms of the documentary. I just felt like there was a lot more, in the subtlety of the way that the filming was done, there was a lot more going on. So even if it wasn't verbalized, there was a lot more going on with these women. Like, what is it, Carly, who aka Lucy Tyler, blonde girl who had the piercings, and who said that she got together with some guy at school finally, and she was really into him, and they finally had sex, and he dumped her the next day. Like, that has got to do something to you psychologically, and I know many women in my life like that, like growing up, where that's happened to them, and it does something to you psychologically. And people will say, oh, that's just a minor thing that happens to everyone, whatever, but it has an effect on you to some degree, and something must have clicked in her mind in order for her to think, well, actually, do you know what, I might as well just do this and get paid. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's on a level, it's esteem issues.
Definitely.
You know, they may have had the confidence, but did they have self-esteem? And self-esteem and confidence are not the same thing. So I just think there was a lot more playing interestingly into this documentary, and I don't want people to think that I think that, you know, pornography is amazing. Like, I don't have an issue with it. There's certainly a dark side to it, but I'm just not surprised. I wasn't at all surprised by how jaded they were, and at all surprised by their reaction to this whole let me do porn and make easy money, because at the end of the day, we can't deny that we are living in an economical climate whereby to achieve even a quarter of the things that maybe our parents have achieved, we've got to work that much harder, and the opportunities, I feel like, are almost shrinking, and the gap between those who have and those who don't have is expanding consistently. Yeah, pornography may not be the best way to go about it, but I mean, you know, I've worked as a waitress for £5.50 an hour, I've worked as a dishwasher and been told I'm going to get paid £5 per hour, and then being cheated 40-hour weeks at £3.25.
And when you're a young person, you know, I remember when you're young, you look, I'm never gonna do that. There's a disdain. You watch the internet, and now with the internet, you see celebrities having fun. You're young, you want to do that. And if you live in these rural towns like the middle of Texas or something, and there's no fun, you see your parents, and even the guy that was kind of facilitating, he was like, these girls want to get away. They see the advertisement $800. You know, it's easy. They don't even tell their parents until they're already in it, and then they regret it. And when you're that young, what do you know? I mean, honestly. And they're not being swindled. They're just making really bad choices. And unfortunately, some of them do learn from their mistakes. And, you know, actually, I do want to kind of wrap this up on this. The funny thing is, and I think this is the most, I hate to say it, kind of amusing thing. It's, you know, darkly amusing. It's not really funny, but people can do porn now. I would say, and this is me, this is my observation coming away from this. You can do porn as a young person and still live a normal life, and not it be such a stigma as it would have been 10 years ago.
That is true. That is very true. You can do.
The girl who left at the end of this movie, I thought to myself, you know what? I've met people, even not some of my friends, but I've heard like my little cousin be like, oh, this girl took pictures, or this girl did porn, and we're more accepting of it. I think there's going to be a lot of girls that go, and look, the numbers, there were stats in this documentary that show you thousands of girls do porn for just a month. Their videos are out there already. You'll never know.
Yeah, well, no, my mum was watching. My mum watches this thing called, is it Teen Mum?
Yeah.
And one of the people on there, she went and like did pornographic videos, and she's notorious for doing Teen Mum. So like, you know, and I think actually her clip was included in a documentary, and they were like, "Why did you do it?" She goes, "I wanted to explore my sexuality or something." I don't know. Yeah, it's not. I don't know. I'm quite jaded with society anyway. I'm quite
I mean,
terrible.
you're jaded. We're not even young.
I'm not
Just
even
imagine
young. I'm
if
just
they're
jaded.
young and you're like, what have I got to lose, man? And you know, and worst of all, and actually let me end on this motherfucking point. Fuck's sake, man. I'm sorry to keep swearing, but
That's all right.
a couple years ago, Kim Kardashian and all these fuckers making sex tapes
Yeah.
that launched their careers.
Yeah, that is
So
very
it's
true.
even promoting that, hey man, I need to do this shit because it can make a name for myself. Fuck porn, just leak my pictures. Even celebrities do it to boost themselves. It's all about sex, man. It's sad.
The question I also have to ask, though, JJ, in part of that is, what are parents doing? No, seriously, because I have a 12, 13-year-old cousin, right? She just turned 12, 13 a couple of weeks ago. She is not allowed on Facebook. She is not allowed on Twitter. She is not allowed on Instagram. She does not have a mobile phone, right? And if she wants to organize any kind of play dates, her parents, her mums, my aunt and her partner, they get on the phone and they organise it on her behalf.
Okay.
And she sees her kids at school, etc. So I want to know, in part, the censorship is a huge issue and there should be much more censorship. Because the statistic given, was it Twitter, minimum of 13 years old? That's why I mentioned Twitter. Most pornographic images on Twitter are not censored, and you can be as the minimum age of 13-year-olds to have a Twitter account, which I don't think should be allowed. I think the minimum age should be 16, because that's legally the minimum age for sex in this country, in the UK. She's not allowed. She's not allowed on any social media whatsoever. So I'm wanting to know what parents are also doing with their kids and their laptops and shit like that.
You make a really good point, but you got to put this in perspective as well. And I'm sure you'll argue me on this point. Everything you just listed, what they had to do, get rid of the phone, get rid of it, and get there. In this day and age, it's harder now to control and maintain a kid from all these vices than it was back in the day. And that's not an excuse. I'm just saying it's a lot harder now with the access to technology to stop them from doing these kind of things when they're so easy to get into, just a weekend. Look at this guy on this documentary. He said, "I'll pay." He put up a free trip out there. All you gotta do is fuck, and you're. I mean, you gotta be even more assertive as a parent today than ever. And generally, I mean, parents back then weren't that great. So now, if you're not a technologically advanced, on the ball, responsible parent, and you're just a little bit lax, your kids could easily fall through the cracks. It's not an excuse for it. I'm just saying it's harder now than ever to stop to fur from all this crazy shit out there.
I'm not saying it's easy, because I've become really good friends with a woman who I used to work with, who is our age, she's 35. She's got a daughter, and she was saying, just for two things, how is she going to protect her daughter from all these images, sexually orientated, as we've just been talking about, and also she was talking about identity, because Disney movies and lack of diversity in Disney movies, etc. So I had this conversation with her, and I could see exactly where she was coming from, and it's not that I don't respect it and stuff like that. However, I do think that some not all parents, but some parents kind of rely on technological devices almost to babysit their kids. So they don't take on that element of responsibility, and you can't protect them from everything. I realise this. But yeah, it's a combination of things. I think government legislation needs to change, in terms of more sort of censorship. Watersheds needs to be reinforced, because that almost seems to have disappeared.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? For videos, Rihanna, for example, with Work, she's done an explicit video and then
I think the internet has destroyed watersheds, though.
Yeah, pretty much. And there needs to be some sort of certification equivalent online, and I just think that social media should just not be, I mean, I can only speak for the UK, I don't know what the age restrictions are in other countries, but social media in this country, it should just not be accessible for people younger than 16, because the sex limit, the legal sex age is 16, so why would you allow someone to go on to Instagram at the age of 12, 13, supposedly, minimal age, Twitter, minimal age, and effectively be able to be exposed to adult content, really, and they're not even at the legal age for sleeping with somebody. Like, it doesn't correlate to me, so I don't know, maybe I'm just a little bit of I don't have kids yet, so maybe that's what it is as well.
You sound like you'll be taking every measure to stop your kids right there. It's hard.
I would be, because the thing is I do understand, I absolutely understand, apologies for going high pitched there, but I absolutely understand that there's kids time and there's adults time, and that's how it should still be divided, and the lines have been blurred somewhere along the line, and
things are not, it's not just blurred, things have changed all of it.
They've changed, so I would be, because like I said, my cousin has a completely different username. It's child protected. It's child locked. She doesn't have a mobile phone. She doesn't have a Twitter. She doesn't have Instagram. She doesn't have Facebook. There's no need. She's 13. Like, go to school. Go to school.
Okay.
Extracurricular activities.
We need to wrap this up, because we have gone off topic. We've had a general discussion about our thoughts on the pornography industry, and we might be out of touch, people. But just wrapping up the documentary. It was fine. The documentary was fine. It wasn't overblown. It wasn't over glamorous. I thought it did what it was meant to do. To be honest with you, if you watch the documentary, I highly recommend checking out the interview Rashida Jones did with Vice magazine. Check the link. She puts everything in context. I think she's very liberal and I think she's very fair in what she thinks. And hearing her talk, I can see she was a producer, not a director, because I think she would have been a little bit even more liberal than this documentary actually was. But it was fine. I would recommend it. It's fine. I came away thinking I'd never want to watch young girls again after watching the documentary, because they look like babies to me anyway. But it's just. But you know what? The documentary was fine. It got a lot of praise. Netflix obviously backing this was really good as well. I don't really want to give this a rating. It's a solid B documentary. It wasn't mind blowing, and I knew a lot of this anyway, and I'm not interested in young porn of this, but it brought up, that the discussion me and Raven just had, it was a good talking point, and I think it was good, and I liked the fact someone addressed this, because it does need to be addressed, and it's just for Generation Z and the rest of generations coming along. I have no idea what's going to happen with pornography. It's just becoming so ingrained into pop culture, into life. That's the scariest thing. Not just the youth, even the old, even like I said, our pop idols, even they're succumbing to it and promoting it. It's just the whole thing is just merging into society, period. And this is just the ground level. This documentary shows the ground level, and as the years go on, I just fear for what's coming ahead. But that's my final thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, like you said, really, it was a good documentary overall. It was scary how easily they could get into it, but I wasn't shocked, which is sad, really, that I wasn't shocked, I suppose. Yeah. But yeah, it was a good one, and it does make me think that if I do have children, wow, just wow, yeah, really.
This is why, apart from even this is one section of society that disturbs me. Just porn. There's a lot of other things that the youth today have to deal with that I'm an old ass man. We're both in our 30s. So guys, anyway, you know what? If you've watched the documentary, I know this was a long discussion, but I had to have Raven on to have it, get the female perspective, which was fine. I really appreciate you going back and forth with me on this. But guys, also leave your comments down below if you've seen the documentary, if you're gonna see it. What did you think? If you're thinking about watching it, it's okay, it's fine. I know we went off kind of just going on an open discussion, but you kind of have to. If you ever wanted our thoughts on it, that's our honest opinions. And Raven, when you get your YouTube channel up, I'm sure you're going to go into stuff like this a lot more, because I know you're very passionate about these kind of things. And
I try and look at things like balance, because I just think it's really easy to just go, like, not that you were saying it, but I just think it's really easy to go, no, that's bad, that's wrong, or that's good, that's great. It's pornography at the heart of it seems simplistic, and then I just think maybe when you looking at it, and then I just think when you look at it from a broader spectrum as to why people would even contemplate going into it, it just gets a bit more complex. So yeah, but I just no, that's it really. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me on.
I hope once you've listened to the podcast, you want to come back and do some more, I've got some more plans for you, especially
definitely, yeah. Like,
we've seen you in the video with all us guys, but now you've had your own little spotlight time. So I hope you had a good time. Hope you had a good discussion.
I did. Thank you very much for inviting me on here.
All right, guys. If you can see the annotations on the right to all the other stuff we do for animation, TV shows, books, whatever and you can check out our other documentaries we covered. We're going to do a lot more. And until then, I want to say thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.